Ryzen 3 has finally been revealed. So what's it all about? And as a gamer, should you buy it? Stay tuned. Welcome back to GamerMeld. Ryzen 3 is finally dropped and the reviews are in. I didn't get a review unit, so I unfortunately couldn't do my own test, but as I've stated before, I fully understand that. Hopefully as the channel grows, I'll get that opportunity. So what's Ryzen 3 about? Well, for one, it comes in two flavors, Ryzen 3 1300X and the 1200. As we found out a little earlier, both are 4 cores and 4 threads with a TDP of 65 watts. The 1300X runs at a base clock of 3.5 GHz with a boost of 3.7 and comes in at $130. The 1200 is also a 4-core 4-thread CPU with a base clock of 3.1 GHz and a boost of 3.4, with a very nice price of $110. Both have unlocked multipliers, just like all of AMD's CPUs, so overclocking is completely viable considering you have a B350 or X370 motherboard. As the naming suggests, these are made to rival Intel's i3 CPUs, with the 1300X nicely placed at $20 less than Intel's 7350X counterpart, and the 1200 is $10 less than the comparable i3 7100. Okay, specs aside, how did they do against Intel's i3, and should you buy? Well, after going through tons of benchmarks, the answer mostly depends on what you plan to do with it. Overall, Ryzen 3 is certainly a capable chip, especially with its price. It beats out Intel in heavily threaded applications by quite a bit, but it does lose in single-core performance. If you plan on doing a good bit of multi-threaded work, Ryzen 3 is a great chip. And if you plan on overclocking, they're honestly pretty great chips overall, really. And that is both chips from what I've seen. Unlike, say, the 1700 versus the 1800X, basically these are more heavily bent, so their overclocking actually has a little bit of a gap, unlike, say, Ryzen 5 and Ryzen 7. Although overall it still seems the 1200 is the better price to performance of the two. You'll just get a little more juice out of the 1300X. But what about when it comes to gaming? Well, it's somewhat a mixed bag and tough to answer, to be honest. Overall, it seems the i3s do beat Ryzen in pure gaming FPS, but there is an argument for having a lower end GPU. Simply put, if you don't have a very high end GPU that eliminates the bottleneck, pretty much all CPUs perform the same. So it could be argued that Ryzen 3 is purely overall better, thanks to its better performance in multi-threaded processes, unless of course you have more single-threaded workloads. Either way, I'd say that's mostly true, but if you, for whatever reason, want to use a much better GPU, at the end of the day, the i3 seems to pull ahead. Unfortunately, not many benchmarked with Ryzen overclocking, but with a decent comparison on PC Gamer, the 1300X seemed to be right on par with the 7100. Though the 7100 is $10 less. Honestly though, it's really tough not to mostly suggest Ryzen for those with anything less than a 1080, especially if games that optimize better for it in the future give it more performance, which very well might happen. Basically, you probably can't go wrong with either Intel's 7100 or AMD's Ryzen 3 chips. One thing I will say that I found really interesting was when going through PCPer's benchmarks, a great price to performance contender is surprisingly the Pentium G4560. It did great for the price in both games and multi-threaded workloads. So with all of that said, what kind of conclusion can we form? Honestly, the i3 really does put up quite a decent fight with its higher clocks and overall better IPC, but Ryzen 3 ultimately tends to be better in the price performance arena. At least overall, and with good overclocking, it can just about get to identical performance to Intel's i3 counterparts in gaming. So it certainly seems Ryzen 3 is the ultimate winner. But what do you think? Are you pumped AMD brought it to Intel from flat out top to bottom? Or were you hoping for something more? Let me know in the comments below. That does it for now. If you liked the video, don't forget to subscribe by clicking on the round icon in the middle. You can check out the most recent video and suggest a video to the left. Thanks so much for coming, and as always, have a great day.